We are picking up, I believe, in Act 3, Scene 2. We just talked briefly about when Oberon comes forth and asks, if Titania be awake and stuff. Puck comes in and tells him yes, that she's fallen in love with a rude mechanical who he's put the head of an ass on. Okay? It's bottom page 1207 and top of 1208. Oberon, 35. Now let me back up. Line 31. Puck is speaking and says, I led them on in this distracted fear, left sweet Pyramus translated there. When in that moment, so it came to pass, Titania waked and straightway loved an ass. Oberon, this falls out better than I could devise. And this is better than her falling in love with an animal. Why? I don't think I talked about this with my previous class. If you think of that great chain of being idea that I had up here before, so you've got the various links, all the way down, and you have the angelic up above humanity, and you have the beasts down before humanity, and humanity is here, and the fairies are kind of up here. They're like superhuman, if you want. Bottom with his head transformed is where on that? He's part human and part ass. He's neither of each of those, though. So he's a chimera, a mixture of two things. But notice he's not higher on this scale. He's dropped down, okay, or on this chain of being. I think that's what Oberon means when he says, this falls out even better than I could devise. But hast thou latched the Athenian's eyes? Why? Why does he care about Demetrius and Helena? Well, we're going to see throughout the remainder of Act 3, he wants true love to be rewarded. He wants true love to be restored. Okay? So, Puck. Yeah, I took him sleeping. That's taken care of too. And the Athenian maid is by his side. So when he wakes up, everything, must be right. So in comes Demetrius and Helena. Oberon. This is the same Athenian. Puck. This is the woman, but not this man. Okay? So we see Demetrius and Hermia go back and forth. We're going to skip a bunch. Let's see here. Demetrius lies down, falls asleep, in page 1209, line 88, Oberon steps forth. Because Oberon and Puck are on the stage, okay, when Demetrius and Hermia come out. What hast thou done? Now, when Oberon says that line, he ought to express it angrily. He's very upset with Puck. Thou hast mistaken quite and laid the love juice on some true love's sight. Of thy misprision must perforce ensue some true love turned, and not a false turned true. Because when Oberon said, here's the Athenian youth, he meant, here's the one whose loved eyes I wanted you to anoint the love juice on. Instead, when we see Demetrius and Hermia come in, we're kind of what? We're back to the beginning of the play, when Hermia loved Lysander, Lysander loved Hermia, Demetrius loved Hermia, and Helena loved Demetrius. Oberon saw this and saw Demetrius's hate and scorn for Helena. He wanted to fix that. Instead, notice, we're not told at this point what has happened with Lysander. All we know is that Demetrius still loves Hermia, okay? Because nothing's happened to his eyes. So Oberon's point is, this is going to mess things up even more by you putting the love juice on the wrong eyes. Puck. Then fate overrules that one man holding troth, that is being faithful, being loyal in marriage, a million fail, confounding oath on oath. For every one loyal, faithful husband in marriages, there are a million who aren't. What kind of perspective on marriage or true love does this give us? This is, keep in mind, it's Puck's. It's not Demetrius's or Lysander's or humans. Okay? And notice, who does Puck ascribe the error to? It wasn't me, Oberon. It was fate. Fate overruled this. Fate made, get the names, fate made him see Lysander, not Demetrius. Bear in mind, when Oberon gave him that command, what descriptions did he give him? There's an Athenian youth and an Athenian maid. What did he see? He saw an Athenian youth and an Athenian maid. He didn't give them names. He didn't give any other kind of descriptions. Was one dark-haired or light-haired or, anything like that. So he says, go around the wood and find Helena of Athens. See, he apparently knew the names, but he didn't say them. Find her. She is all fancy sick and pale of cheer. Love sick. Actual, I think I mentioned the other day, an actual Renaissance Elizabethan diagnosis. Okay? With sighs of love that cost a fresh blood dear. By some illusion, bring her here. What does illusion mean? If you are seeing illusions, are you seeing properly? No, you're not. Your eyes are tricking you. Okay? Bring her here, and I'll charm his eyes against she do appear. I will charm, gotta get the right guy, Demetrius's eyes, so that when he opens his eyes, he'll see Helena, and all will be well. Okay? So he puts the love juice on Demetrius's eyes. Puck comes back and says, here's Helena. Oberon, stand aside. The noise they make will cause Demetrius to awake. Puck, then will two at once woo one. Ooh, that must needs be sport alone. And those things do best please me that befall preposterously. So, Puck explains what's going to happen here. All right? So, Hermia still loves Lysander. All right? This is going to happen in a moment. Demetrius, what? He's not going to love Hermia. He's going to fall in love with Helena because his eyes have been anointed. And he's going to see Helena first. So the first love juice, Hermia still loves Lysander, but then Lysander's going to fall in love with Helena. Thank you. I always get them all mixed up, and my brain's fried. Okay? So, Lysander and Helena come in. And Lysander says, why should you think that I should woo and scorn? Because he's already seen her. He's already fallen in love with her. Scorn and derision never come in tears. Why is he talking about tears? He has tears. This is part of his love sickness. This idea of a lover having tears and sighs and love sickness comes from the Italian writer Petrarch. 14th century, we'll talk about him a little more when we get to poetry, who invented a poetic form called the sonnet. The sonnets were usually used to describe or talk about love. Petrarch created that convention, all right? He wrote a series of sonnets about a woman named Laura that he fell in love with. He was already married with kids. He loved her from a distance. I don't think they ever actually met. I could be wrong about that, okay? So he has this kind of intellectual, made-up love for her. And in writing his sonnets, he creates the image of what's called the Petrarchan lover. And this is the guy who is so madly in love with someone, he doesn't remember how to properly dress in the morning. You know, his hose are falling down around his ankles. His doublet isn't properly tied. His hat isn't on properly. His hair's a mess, hasn't shaved, the whole 9 yards. And it's all because his mind is distracted. Bear in mind, the word distracted means drawn away. Because of what? His love for whoever, all right? So, he says, scorn and derision never come in tears. When you hate somebody, do you cry over them? No. And when you deride somebody, when you mock somebody, you know, when you Saturday Night Live somebody, or you know, The Onion, or The Bee, Babylon Bee, you don't have tears, you laugh, you make fun of. So he says, look, when I vow, I weep. When I make these oaths to you, tears are running down his face. He says, vows so born with tears, in their nativity all truth appears. They must be true. Notice this is, you know, leaving aside what can good actors do? Cry on cue. I mean, just say cry and they'll produce tears, okay? I think that's part of the illusion of this play when he's saying this. So they go back and forth, and Demetrius wakes up. So we have Hermia still loving Lysander. Lysander loves Helena now. Demetrius wakes up. He now loves Helena, and Helena still loves Demetrius. So she is nobody. Kind of like she did at the beginning. Unless we go back to before the play began, okay? Because we find out in that first scene in Act 1, Demetrius did what before the play began? He won Helena's heart, okay? So, page 1211, at the very top, 136 or so. O Helen, goddess, nymph, perfect divine, to what, my love, shall I compare thine eyne? Eyne, E-Y-N-E, is actually the historically correct plural of eyes. It's the Old English form. So, he calls her a goddess, a nymph, another kind of goddess, okay? Perfect and divine. What was he calling her like 5 minutes ago? Almost, or 10 minutes ago. Go away, I don't love you. You make me ill, etc. He says, so to what shall I compare your eyes? Crystal is muddy. Crystal, like, you know, real fine cut glass. It's muddy compared to your eyes. How ripe and show thy lips, those kissing cherries tempting grow. So he started with her eyes, and he goes down and talks about her lips. What you have here is a blazon. It's the beginning of a cataloging of her beauties. And if he had more time, he would go down. If he had more time, he probably would have started with her hair, and then talked about her forehead, and then talked about her eyes, and then talked about maybe her cheeks, and then her lips, and her teeth, and her breasts, and the whole rest of her. We're going to see a poem later on where a poet essentially does that. He talks about forehead, eyes, breast, and then he says the rest. And he's moving from top to bottom, all right? If you read that sonnet that I sent over the weekend, I sent a link to, Sonnet 130, My Mistress' Eyes Are Nothing Like the Sun. Shakespeare is taking this idea and he's writing an anti-blazon. He does the reverse of a catalog of beauties. He does a what's the opposite of beauty? Catalog of uglies? Something like that. But he's not kind of doing that literally. What the speaker in that poem is doing, I think I pointed this out the other day, is essentially saying, my lover is real. Why? Because these blazons, look at the language. Who fits this kind of description? In a Petrarchan sonnet, what the poet does, or what the speaker in the poem does, is he uses such overblown language to describe his lover that she always comes across as a goddess. Now, what's the difference between a goddess and a real woman? I'm kind of giving it away. Not a real woman. And what Shakespeare does in Sonnet 130 is has his speaker essentially say, my lover's a real woman. She keeps me warm in bed at night. Those goddesses out there, they're all in the mind. That doesn't keep you warm at night. So, thy lips, those kissing cherries, tempting grow, that pure congealed white, high tar of snow, fanned with the eastern wind, blah, blah, blah. O spite, O hell, I see you all are bent to set against me for your merriment. Now, when she says you all, y'all, what does she mean? Does she include Hermia at this point? No. Why not? Hermia's not here. She's talking about Lysander, where he's here, and Demetrius. You two are doing what? Playing with her emotions. They're making a practical joke of her. Or making a practical joke out of her and pranking her. So, she says, if you were civil and knew courtesy, you would not do me thus much injury. Skip another, no. Can you not hate me as I know you do, but you must join in souls to mock me too? It's okay that you hate me, I get that. But you have to mock me? What's the difference between hatred and mockery? If you hate someone, do they necessarily know? Maybe not. If you mock that person, what does it mean? You're right here. You do it to the face. And what's the person of mockery? What's the purpose, of mockery?
Humiliation.
Louder?
Humiliation.
Humiliation. It's to tear that individual down. Is the purpose of hatred to destroy somebody? No, it's not. Okay? It's not. But the purpose of mockery is destruction. It's annihilation. Maybe not literal, but figurative, emotional. She's emotionally being torn apart. If you were men, as men you are in show, so she uses the word men in two different ways. If you were men, you look like men. It's kind of mean. If they were naked, you would know they're men, in other words. You appear to be men. But the first one, if you were men, she's saying what? If you were a real man. If you were real men. And what does she mean by, what does she imply by that? Well, look at what she says. Lost my place. You would not use a gentle lady so, to vow and swear and superpraise my parts. If you were real men, you would show the word that she used earlier, courtesy, proper behavior. You would be gentlemen, acting out of honor, acting out of virtue, acting out of nobility toward me. when I am sure you hate me with your hearts. You both are rivals. Come on. You guys love Hermia. Where is she? You love Hermia. Why are you doing this to me? You can understand maybe Demetrius, right? He loved her, but now he doesn't anymore, you know? He woke up and the day ended with Y, so he doesn't love her anymore, kind of a thing. And now both rivals to mock Helena? A trim exploit. You got a little gloss down there. A pretty, a fine, that is, ooh, that's really masculine of you. How do I know that's what she means? A manly enterprise. This is what real men ought to do. To conjure tears up in a poor maid's eyes with your derision. None of noble sort. A real person of nobility. And bear in mind, Demetrius and Lysander, they're not commoners. They're highborn. That's why when, in the opening scene, that's why Lysander says that he is as equally named as Demetrius. That is, I come from a good old family, just like Demetrius does. Okay? Lysander, you are unkind, Demetrius. Be not so, for you love Hermia. There's kind of the pot calling the kettle black. What's he talking about? He should be the one loving Hermia. This you know I know, and hear with all goodwill, with all my heart. And Hermia's love, you can have her. Remember what he said earlier? Demetrius, you have her father's love. You marry him. Now he's saying, I don't want her. Lysander, keep thy Hermia. I will none. Will, desire. I don't want any part of her. If ever I loved her, all that love is gone. My heart to her, but as guest while I sojourn. Now to Helen, it home returned. He's saying, I loved Helena first, and then I sojourned and fell in love with Hermia. And now, my love is returning back home. In other words, this is whom he ought to love. See, the love juice in Demetrius' eyes, the way I read it, a lot of critics don't read it this way. What the love juice does to Demetrius' eyes is it makes him kind of see clearly. It makes him love the one he ought to love. Why? Because she's the one he loved before. She's the one he loved first. When the love juice is put on Titania's eyes, it makes her do what? Love the one she shouldn't love. And in that sense, it's a potion. It produces false love. Okay? Helen, it is not so. Demetrius says, disparage not the faith thou dost not know, lest in thy peril thou buy it dear. Look where thy love comes. Here comes Hermia. Here comes your lover. And Hermia walks in. And talks about dark night and her hearing. Why? She couldn't see where Lysander was, but she heard his voice off in the distance, and she followed him. Mine ear, I thank it, brought me to thy sound, but why unkindly didst thou leave me so? Why did you leave me? And notice unkindly doesn't only mean, it does have this meaning of unnicely. It also means unnaturally. Why did against nature you leave me? Well, what kind of nature? Is it natural for a woman who's sleeping here and a man who's sleeping here for this man? Is it not natural for this man to just get up and leave? No. Not natural how? Lovers. What did he say? Almost his final words before they went to sleep. He will be loyal how long? Till death do us part. You have my heart. And he gets up and leaves. That's not loyalty. Getting up and leaving her in the middle of a forest is not being faithful. Okay? Okay? Lysander, why should he stay, whom love doth press to go? Notice, she says, why did you leave me? How does he address himself? Third person. He doesn't say I, he says him. Or Lysander. What love could press Lysander from, why should he stay whom love doth press to go? What's he mean by press? See, there's an example of a word that's used that doesn't have our modern, very modern English meaning. Like press, to press on something. It's not what it means. It's not like love pushed him. Okay? It's a military term. It's a term primarily used by the British Navy. Beginning in the Renaissance and up through the Napoleonic Wars in the early 1800s, a ship's captain could pull into port and send off gangs of sailors into town. Okay? And their job was to press new sailors. So they would go to the brothels, they would go to the pubs, and they would walk the streets and find young men. Take that back. They would look for young men. If they couldn't find them, they'd take old men too and press them into service. What does the press mean there? They would literally bind and shackle them. They'd take them back onto the ship, and now you're a member of His Majesty's Navy, or Her Majesty's Navy, as the case may be. All right? Usually when a ship would pull into harbor, the young men, and young men means like from 12 to 45, would flee. They'd run out into the country so that they would not be pressed into service. It was especially bad if it was during a period of war. All right? That's the image he's using. Why should he stay whom love doth press to go? Love came and bound me and took me away from your side. Hermia, what love could press Lysander from my side? She's saying love wouldn't do that. Lysander's love that would not let him bide. What's bide mean? If you're told to bide your time, it means wait. Just wait. I couldn't wait. Couldn't wait for what? Fair Helena, who more engilds the night than all yon fiery O's and eyes of light. Helena does what to the nighttime? Remember, Hermia came in saying, I couldn't see you. It was pitch black. He says, Helena is like a light shining in the darkness. She's a beacon. What is the purpose of a beacon? It's to draw you to it. Why seekst thou me? Could not this make thee know the hate I bear thee made me leave you so? Am I not clear? I hate you. No, you cannot be. Look at Helena's response. Has Helena been addressed by Hermia or Lysander? Nope. But Helena speaks. She is one of this confederacy. What does she mean by confederacy? There's a plot against her. These three are conspiring against Helena. Okay. So if they are, let's assume for the moment she's right. If they are, when did this plot begin? Who should be in the wood right now? Lysander and Hermia. Should Helen and Demetrius be there? No, they shouldn't. Why are they there? Or more specifically, why is Demetrius there? Because Helena blabbed her mouth off. Okay? They have conjoined all three to fashion this false sport in spite of me. Injurious Hermia, most ungrateful maid, have you conspired? Have you with these contrived? And then she goes on and talks about what good friends they used to be. Why would you do this to me? Hermia, I am amazed, should say, at your passionate words. I scorn you not. It seems that you scorn me. Okay, so you haven't set Lysander on me? You haven't told Lysander to do this? To follow me and praise my face and eyes and face? And made your other love, Demetrius, call me goddess, nymph, divine and rare, precious, celestial? He never actually said those last two, by the way, precious and celestial. Why does he speak like this about her whom he hates? What's she really asking? What gives? Lysander never loved me. Demetrius did once, but then he didn't, but now he does again. Hermia, I don't know what you mean. Persever. That is, persevere, continue in counterfeit sad looks. Make mouths upon me when I turn my... I know what you guys are up to. Whenever I turn my back, you sit there and mouth words at each other or mock me. Wink at each other, hold the sweet just up. She says, this sport will carry it, shall be, or were carried, shall be chronicled. It's going to be written down and people are going to talk about what a fool I was. If you have any pity, grace, or manners, you would not make me such an argument. But fare you well. Why? 'Tis partly my own fault, which death or absence soon shall remedy. Why is it partly your own fault? Yeah. Never should have told Demetrius, never should have followed you in the forest. So what does she say is going to happen? What will resolve this situation? Death or my absence? See, we're right at this point where this play could become a tragedy. What happens if she goes off in the woods and they call her, and they don't find her, and they find a body? Well, you flip it over because now we're in a tragedy. There's no way to turn that around. Lysander, stay, gentle Helen. Hear my excuse. In other words, don't go off and kill yourself. Let me tell you why I love you. Hermia, sweet, do not scorn her so. See, Hermia thinks Lysander is mocking Helena. Hermia doesn't realize, yet she will in a page, that Lysander really does love her. Lysander, thou canst compel no more... Demetrius says to Lysander, if she cannot entreat, I can compel. Thou canst compel no more than she entreat. Thy threats have no more strength than her weak prayers. Helen, I love thee. By my life I do. I swear by that which I will lose for thee, to prove him false that says I love thee not. So Demetrius and Lysander start, boasting to each other. Come on, let's take it outside. I mean, they are outside, but let's take it off the stage. Let's fight. And what happens? Hermia grabs onto Lysander. She doesn't want him to go off and fight. Ostensibly, why else does she grab onto him? She thinks by holding him, she can make him hers again. He tries to break away and says, away, you Ethiop. You got a little gloss down there, referring to Hermia's relatively dark hair and complexion. Now that kind of sounds like it means she's black. Okay? Later we're going to have a reference to the tawny Tartars, 6 lines down. Tartars weren't black. They were darker skinned than Europeans. I think I've got sticking in my mind for some reason that the Tartars were from like the area around Mongolia. Genghis Khan kind of folks. So, he says to Hermia, hang off, thou cat, thou burr, vile thing, let loose, or I will shake thee from me like a serpent. And she's like, what? Out, tawny tartar. Out, loathed medicine. Out, hated potion. These are lines 263 or so. Okay? Loathed medicine. It's the medicine you take as a purgative. Medicine you take that'll make you vomit. Okay? Do you not jest? Helena, yes, truly, and so do you. That is, you're playing this game. Demetrius, I will keep, Lysander says, I'll keep my word, let's go fight. Lysander, should I strike her? Hurt her? Strike her? Kill her dead? He's talking about Hermia. Although I hate her, I'll not harm her so. Because he's still trying to fight Hermia off. Hermia, what can you do me greater harm than hate? Hate me? Wherefore? Oh me, what news, my love? What news? What has happened to change your love? Am not I Hermia? Are you not Lysander? And she almost implies that those two names mean, like Lysander means loves Hermia, and Hermia's name means loves Lysander. Apparently, even from before the beginning of the play, Hermia loved Lysander, he loved her. So she says, why then you left me, oh the gods forbid, in earnest shall I say. In earnest. You've really left me. That's what she's getting at. It's finally dawning on her. Hermia, Lysander, by my life. That is, he's swearing by his life, I never loved you. And never did desire to see thee more. And therefore be out of hope, of question, of doubt. Be certain, nothing truer. 'Tis no jest that I do hate thee and love Helena. Oh me. It's like, oh my God, you juggler. She's not talking to Lysander, she's turning to Helena. You juggler, you cankerblast. Why juggler? What does a juggler do? Keeps, balls in the air, so to speak. What's Helena juggling? Lysander and Demetrius. That's what Hermia means. You canker blossom. Canker blossom is like a worm or a disease that infects a flower and does what? It sucks the nectar and destroys the flower. You thief of love. What, have you come by night and stolen my love's heart from him? Remember the dream she had? Of a worm that infested her heart? Well, she and Lysander both used what kind of language earlier? My heart is yours. My heart is yours. So if Lysander's heart is hers, and Helena was the canker blossom that came and stole his heart, you get the idea. So she says, Hermia says, Helena says, will you tear impatient answers from my gentle tongue? That is, don't make me say what I'm thinking. Fie, F-U, essentially. You counterfeit, you puppet, you. Counterfeit, you imposter. She still thinks Hermia is playing, is part of this conspiracy of a practical joke. You puppet. Now your gloss tells you puppet, counterfeit, or dwarfish woman. That is one possible meaning of puppet. What's another? What's an obvious meaning of puppet? What does a puppet do? Whatever the hand inside makes the puppet do. Okay? Helena is suggesting that Hermia is kind of being worked by Lysander and Demetrius. That they've all gone into this together. Hermia, however, hears that word puppet, and what does she think? She thinks your textbook definition. Dwarfish woman. Puppet? Oh, that way goes the game. Now I perceive that she hath made compare between our statures. And she thus goes on. What does this tell us about Hermia's character?
Short.
Okay, what else? That tells us about her physical character. Tell me a little bit about her intellectual or emotional character. Any of you know about who the songwriter Randy Newman is? He had a very famous song. Man, when was this? Years ago. Late 80s, early 90s sometime. Short people got no reason to live. All right? Played on all the radios. Quite hilarious song. One of my daughters just detests it because she's, 5'2"1/4. And that quarter inch is really important because my other daughter's like 5'6". Okay? What chip does Hermia have? She has a short person chip. She can't, she doesn't like tall people, especially tall women or taller women. She hath made compare between our statures. She hath urged her height, and with her personage, her tall personage, her height forsooth, she hath prevailed with him. And dear, are you grown so high in this esteem, because I am so dwarfish and so low? How low am I, thou painted maypole? Speak. And what does she do? She jumps. She says, I can still scratch out your eyes. And I've seen a bunch of productions of this, and in more than one, Hermia leaps, and two things happen simultaneously. One, Lysander tries to hold her back, and two, Helena puts her hands out, and she actually ends up grabbing Hermia so that she's holding Hermia. Helena ought to be 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", and Hermia, So there's a good head difference in height. Helen, I pray you, though you mock me, gentlemen, let her not hurt me. I was never cursed. In other words, she kind of plays, I'm too genteel to fight. I just don't do those things. I am a lady, Think the grandmother in Good Man Is Hard to Find. Because she is something, line 305, lower than myself. You think perhaps that I can match her. Lower, again. See, Helena's going to keep using words that imply Hermia's smallness. Well, look at Helena's next speech. We used to be best friends. Yes?
Do you think she says lower than herself, as in, she's not as good as I am? She's lower.
Possibly. Yeah, I think lower there doesn't just, I think it does have the obvious meaning of height, but I think it means she's baser because she is willing to fight with her hands. She, Hermia. And Helena is saying, I am above that. She's one of those people who says, all violence is always wrong. Like hell. Tell that to the Jews in World War II. If we hadn't fought, Hitler would have won. Period. End of game. Okay? It's just a lie. My opinion, you don't have to agree. She's saying, fighting is beneath me. All right? So she goes on and talks about all this stuff. And she says, I told Demetrius, and because of love I followed him, and he followed you. But he hath chided, and threatened to strike me, spurn me, nay, to kill me. She says, but I'm done. I'm going back to Athens. You guys do what you want. Why, get you gone. Who is it that hinders you? A foolish heart that I leave here behind. I'm not going to be a damn fool no more. You almost get the impression that Helena's going to do what? Or going to become what when she goes back to Athens? What were the three options given to Hermia if she, in response to her father wanting her to marry Demetrius? Option number one, marry Demetrius. Option number two, die. Option number three, become a nun. I can't help but read this and think that Helen is saying, I'm done. I'm done with men. I'm going to go out and become a nun. A foolish heart that I leave here behind. What? With Lysander? See, that's just pettiness on Hermia's part. With Demetrius. She's going to go off. And never see him again, the implication is, even though she still loves Demetrius. Notice, she can't stop loving him. Be not afraid. She shall not harm thee, Helena. No, she shall not, though you take her part. Helena. Oh, and she's angry. She is keen and shrewd. She was a vixen when she went to school. And though she be but little, she is fierce. Go to almost any production of A Midsummer Night's Dream where they're selling merchandise. And that'll be on a shirt. Okay? My daughter's got one from two different productions. National Shakespeare Company and one of the ones in London. Hermia. Little, again. Lo, little, why will you suffer her? Get you, this is Lysander now. Get you gone, you dwarf. You minimus, diminutive creature, of hindering not grass made. Notice, not grass, a weed, an infusion of which was thought to stunt the growth. You bead, you acorn. You small, little, inconsequential, insignificant thing. Demetrius, whoa, that's going too far, man. Why does Demetrius say that? Well, he loves Hermia. So, Demetrius goes off stage. Lysander goes off, following him. Why? They're going to have it out. They're going to determine who gets Hermia. How? Force of arms. Whoever kills the other, Hermia, quote unquote, belongs to that one. All right? Hermia goes off. Helen has already... No, she hasn't. Demetrius, Hermia, Helena. Helena goes off, and then Hermia does. Puck and Oberon come forward, because they've been on stage during this whole scene. All right? This is sometimes called the lovers' fight scene. Okay? So, what are Puck and Oberon doing while all this is going on? If you were directing it, what would you tell Puck to do during this? I mean, are they just sitting back there like this, watching? I don't think so. I think Oberon probably is. But he's not just sitting there watching unconcernedly. I kind of imagine he's like this, and he's tapping his toes, and he has a frown on his face because he's pissed. This is not going how things are supposed to be going. And Puck is kind of almost bouncing around because he loves this. This just makes his day. And I think I've seen one production, either I've seen it or I've directed it in my mind, where Puck, while the humans are having these arguments, he goes around to people and he pokes them, like in the ribs, to kind of make them jump. But they don't jump because they can't feel it. But when he does that, that's when one of them speaks. So it's like he's encouraging this discord. This is thy negligence. You did this. Still thou mistakest, or else commits thy knaveries willfully. So he gives an option there. Still, meaning always, constantly, you mistakest, you screw up. Or you did this on purpose. You intended this to happen. Puck, believe me, King of Shadows, I mistook. Did you not tell me I should know the man by the Athenian garments? Hello, Athenian garments. So far blameless proves my enterprise. I've anointed an Athenian's eyes. And so far am I glad it so did sort as this their jangling I esteem a sport. What is a sport?
Something you play.
Or, if you're not one of the sporters, athletes, it's something you watch. It's something that you watch for pleasure. A play is a sport of sorts. Okay? These lovers seek a place to fight. So he says, go. Cast the night over. Keep them from finding each other. And lead them to a place and get them tired so that Lysander will fall asleep in one spot and Demetrius will fall asleep in another spot. Okay? Why? I'm going to crush this herb into Lysander's eye. For what purpose? Line 368 or so. To take from thence all error with his might and make his eyeballs roll with wonted sight, so that he will see the way he is supposed to see, which means, Hermia, my love. Notice he's not going to do anything to Demetrius's eyes. Why not? Because Demetrius does see how he is supposed to see. Demetrius sees now how he saw Helena before the play began, when he made love to her and won her heart. So, he's going to restore these loves. All right? And what else is he going to restore? His love. Or he and his wife's love. He says, and back to, when they next wake, all this derision, we've got a gloss, laughable business. But derision also means, when you deride somebody, you are scorning them, you're kind of breaking them apart, but it's for one purpose. It's to show them the error of their ways. Okay? All this derision shall seem a dream and fruitless vision. Why will the vision be fruitless? Because Lysander will wake up and realize, I never loved Helena. Helena's not my type. Man, what a crazy dream that was. And Hermia is going to wake up and say, well, Lysander would never turn from me. I know what Lysander's like. Okay? And back to Athens shall the lovers wend, whose league whose date till death shall never end. Whose league, their joining together, shall never end until death. Oberon is foretelling to us what is going to happen to the lovers. They're going to go back to Athens, and what's going to happen? They're going to get married. We don't know that that's going to happen until we get to Act 4, however. When Theseus and Hippolyta come out in the forest and meet them, okay? We'll get to that in just a second. So, Puck says, sun's coming up. Oberon tells him what he's going to do. I'm going to find Titania. I'm going to undo her eyes, okay? So, Act 4. Puck has brought Lysander in, got him to lay down. He's brought Hermia in, put her next to Lysander. She doesn't know Lysander's there. They both fall asleep. Demetrius and Helena are both asleep next to each other. And we see, Act 4, we see Oberon remove the juice from Titania's eyes. He's gotten the little boy from her while she was still under the spell, so to speak. And he wakes her up. Be, top of 12:21. Be as thou wast wont to be, see as thou wast wont to see. Now, my Titania, wake you, my sweet queen, my Oberon, what visions have I seen? Now, when she goes to sleep with Bottom, at the beginning of the previous page, she talks about being wrapped all around him. So when he says, Titania, wake, and she wakes and she's looking Oberon in the face, but she's wrapped all around Bottom. And she said, man, I had a dream. I thought I was enamored of an ass. And he goes, ah, and she's surprised. How? What does he say? Shh, don't worry about that. Why? I think there's at least two reasons. How's he going to explain? I mean, rationally explain. Oh, well, I put a love juice in your eyes and I made you fall in love with this thing. How's that going to go over? Not very well. It's just a dream. Don't worry, honey. Calm down. No, it's all fine. Okay, we'll stop there. Remember, there's a quiz that's up due Wednesday. We might be able to finish this actually on Wednesday.